All right, good morning. It is a beautiful Monday morning out here, and I'm sitting down closer to the water. So if any of you see any alligators come up behind me, please alert me. Throw a bunch of unhappy faces up, whatever they are, frowny faces, crying faces, something. Get my attention. I should hopefully be able to see them. They say there's no alligators in these waters back here, but I've been told that, quite frankly, any body of water in Florida has alligators in it. So that's the rule of thumb I live by, but I think I'm pretty safe. Anyway, hey, listen, Scott, what's going on, brother? Good to see you, man. I loved your costume over the holiday, or over Halloween. That was freaking amazing. Listen, so the day today, what I'm grateful for today, as I think about all the things that I've done over my past, and I'm going to get into some more stuff as we go through this, but back in 2003, about 2004, I was stationed in Panama, and I had just recently gotten married. And how I proposed to my wife, how I proposed to Tracy, is a whole different story. But it had a lot to do with this big dream. And this big dream of mine was to be a Special Forces an Army Special Forces medic. And I was already in a Special Forces organization as a support. I was the only medic that was non-tabbed, meaning I didn't have the Green Beret, I didn't have the Special Forces tab. And I was the only non-tabbed medic in the organization. But they sent me. I went to Special Forces Selection and Assessment from Panama to Fort Bragg, North Carolina, to Road Training Facility, and I got selected the first time around. And in fact, I broke my foot during selection, during the final road march. Now, if you don't know anything about Special Forces Selection and Assessment, it's 22 days of freaking hell. Basically getting 4 hours of sleep a night, moving all day, all night, with an average of 50 to 80 pound rucksack on your back. And at the time I weighed like 130 pounds. And when I got out of SFAS, Special Forces Selection and Assessment, I still weighed 130 pounds, but I looked like a POW. I was so freaking skinny. Now, along the time, we're carrying all this weight, and on top of our ruck, we're also carrying additional weight because we have equipment we have to move from one point to another, part of all the different, what's going on, Henry? And part of all the missions that we had to accomplish as a team. And we start out with a 12-man team. And our team, during that SFAS, our team was the only team that finished with all 12 of our guys, because we really stuck together. We got into fights, we got into arguments, but at the end of the day, we stuck together, and we were too damn tired by the end of the day. Well, on the final event, which is I estimate about a 22-mile ruck march, basically they say start here, it was midnight, and they say start here and finish when you're told to stop. And we just marched, just go. And I broke my foot about, I'm estimating, because we couldn't have watches, we couldn't have anything like that, anything to keep time. So I'm guessing about 4 hours in, about 3 or 4 hours in, my foot snapped. It was like a flash of light, because it was still dark out. It was like a flash of light out in the woods in North Carolina. And I felt the pain from my foot rush up literally to my right nut. I mean, it was just excruciating pain. So I sat down for a minute, and I didn't want to take my boot off, because although it was January and it was very cold out there, I didn't want my foot to swell up and I wouldn't be able to get my foot back in my boot. So I just taped it up. I just taped it up and just kept marching for about another, I finished about 8 o'clock, 8:30 in the morning, walking through the sand. And by the time I can't really show it because I'm holding my phone, but during the x-ray, my foot was about 30, my bone, my fourth metatarsal was about 30% displaced, which means they weren't lined up. Where the bone is supposed to line up like this here, they weren't lined up. They were like, I can't really do it here, about like that, right? So anyway, I went through all of that, and I got selected, and I went on to go through the 18 Delta course. I graduated from San Antonio in the course, 9 months in San Antonio of very intense medical training, trauma management in a field environment with very little equipment. 9 months of just didactic and 100% balls to the walls, basically like a PA does. Yeah, holy pain, Batman, for reals. That was not the most pain. Well, that was one of the most times I've been in the most pain. Later I'm going to share when I really had a lot of pain and really actually thought I was going to die. That's going to be coming up in a couple days. But I finished selection and assessment, got selected, finished the 9-month course in San Antonio, then moved on to Fort Bragg where I was going to finish up the rest of my training to be an 18 Delta Special Forces medic. Well, keep in mind, during this time, during Special Forces selection and assessment, my wife was pregnant, Tracy was pregnant, and by the time I got into training, because I had to recover, so I wasn't able to go right into training. I had to recover from my broken foot, and that took about 3-4 months. And in that time, we had our first boy, Dylan. And so obviously a lot had changed. Now, when my dream was to be an 18 Delta, I was single. I was just being a single Army man in Panama and just, living life. But I fell in love with this woman, and I decided I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. And then we had a child, and so I'm at the 18 Delta course in Fort Bragg, and we're going through these small unit tactics training, and I'm into that about 4 or 5 months, and they pull me aside and they say, hey, look, we're going to recycle you, which means we're going to put, after this portion of the course, we're going to put you into the next class so that you can learn more as you go. Well, in the time frame of doing that, again, we were in a 12-day field exercise, and part of our team had already dropped off at this part of the training. So my team had to continue carrying the same amount of weight, doing the same missions, and I just made a decision at that point in time. I just made a decision right then that if they were going to recycle me, this was kind of my point, and I was already thinking about it because there's a lot of mind games going on in there, as you can imagine, for Special Forces. And I just decided, you know what, this is not the lifestyle that I want to bring my new family up in. So long story short, very, very hard decision. I voluntarily withdrew from the course, but I didn't leave that day. We had 4 more days left in the training, so I didn't want to leave my team hanging. We already lost 2 guys to medical injuries. 1 guy quit and he just left, and in the middle of the night we woke up, he was gone. And I just wanted to make sure I stayed with the team to continue the missions. And then when we got back to the camp, where the training was done for that, and then I had 1 more section to go, 1 more part of the training to finish to be an 18 Delta, and I just went home. I just decided to go home. And that plagued me for many, many years. It truly plagued me that I quit on that big dream. And it really did. And then it came to me, it's been about 2 or 3 years ago now, I start thinking about all these things about people always saying never quit, never give up on your dream, never quit. Well, you know what? There's a time to quit. There's a time when it's time to give up. And but you got to have the reasons. You got to know things change in your life as you go. And I just decided that I didn't want that lifestyle for my family. And I'm not going to get into all the ins and outs of it because there's a lot of things going on there. But the fact of the matter is I didn't want that for my family. For my young family as I was coming up. As a single man, absolutely 100%. That's exactly what I wanted. But things in my life had changed. My priorities had changed. And so what I'm grateful for today is that I made that decision, and as hard as that decision was to make, because I broke my foot, I went through so much to be prepared to be able to go to SFAS, to get selected, to pass the 18 Delta course in San Antonio, and the attrition rate there was like, damn, almost 40%. I mean, only like barely 60% of us that started that course made it through that course. And then to go on to Fort Bragg and continue on, it was tough. It was very, very tough decision. One of the hardest decisions that I've made to do, to give up on such a big dream. And then I went on to the 82nd Airborne Division, which was a whole different experience, to say the least, which may come up over this next couple days or later on in my story. But my point of this particular story today is that I'm grateful for the fact that I made that tough decision, because I love where my family's at today. I love who we are and as a family, and we went through many more trials and tribulations after that, over the course of time after that, for sure. But those are experiences that we've lived through. So my message to you today is, you know, sometimes your priorities change and they're not conducive with the lifestyle that you're building for yourself. So sometimes you need to make new decisions. You have to readjust. I'm not saying give up on your dream. I might be saying just redirect how you're approaching it and the direction that you want to go. For instance, really quick, I'll share with you that I had always dreamed about having a 6- and 7-figure income. I finally reached a 6-figure income. I told this story the other day. And residual income. That was one thing I always wanted, was the residual income. I always thought residual income was going to come in the form of my business ventures and all this kind of stuff, like it's been sold to me over the years through multi-level marketing and all that kind of stuff. But I have residual income, but it's in the form of my retirement check and my benefits from the military. I reached it. I got my residual income. Just didn't happen the way I thought it would. And that's something I want you to think about as you're going through your day today, and as you're going through this week, and as you're coming up into Thanksgiving and what you're thankful for. Think about things that you want in your life. They may not come the way you think they will. All right. For instance, your freedom and stuff like that. All right. Tony, good to see you guys. I'm going to give you a view real quick. Hey, appreciate that, Andreas, man. Hey, good to see you. I'm going to give you a view of the lake here real quick, and then I'm going to get over to the house and make some breakfast for my lady. All right, talk to y'all later. Look at these birds over here. These guys are awesome. Oh.